And a lot of entrepreneurs, seven, eight-figure entrepreneurs, always say that the first thing to do before you even build something out is to actually sell that thing.
Yes.
So, that way you really know, is there a market for that before you build it?
And I think that is a really important thing to do. Even if it's selling on like a Kickstarter or something beforehand, understanding what somebody will pay is pretty critical, because sometimes what they'll saying, even when you're like giving away stuff, is like, yeah, I'll take it for free.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on another episode of Entrepreneurial Truth. On today's podcast, we have Lindsay Friedman with us. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm excited to talk to you about a bunch of stuff.
Awesome. Likewise. Can you start off by just telling our listeners a little bit about you, who you are, and who you serve?
So I am a 4-time startup founder. 2 that we can dive into were not so successful. They were failures, but lots of learning lessons. And then after becoming a caretaker to my grandmother, I started my one company called Care Bloom, which really helps families who are facing being a family caregiver. It's a really great support tool to make that journey a little easier. And then from my experience of working with our demographics, installing Care Blooms, I actually learned so much. And then I created LT Care Nav because I just really saw a missing piece in the ecosystem.
Awesome. And I want to dive in. You said the first 2 weren't such great experiences, but it was a learning experience. Can you dive into that for us a little bit?
Yes. So the first one was called writingroom.com. It was during the .com boom, right? There was no such thing as Facebook. I was like, oh, it'll be like MySpace for writers, because I like to write. And the first thing I learned was that just because you like to do something or because you need something does not a market make. And you don't understand what people will pay for. So if you create something that nobody will pay for, you are not going to have a business. And I think that was the biggest thing I learned from that piece, is when you build something, make sure there is a way to monetize it that makes sense, which this more applies just directly to startups, right? Like new business models. And make sure that people really want it. Don't just start building and putting money into stuff until you really do a deep dive into the market.
And then when you did that, did you create a system around it in order to be able to test any new idea you had after that first one?
So I guess I didn't learn enough for the second one. It took me 2 times to learn, I guess. No, the second time I actually, like the background removal on Zoom and all of this stuff. So I went to create, I was just calling it like a green screen free like background removal. And it was tech-based. And at the time, this was also early. I started it before there were iPhones, right? So I might have just been a little too early on things. But when I would talk to people about like, this is going to work because when you do a green screen video, you're looking at $3,000 to $5,000 minimum to create those videos. This will change the industry. Now, I knew nothing about green screen videos. All I knew was, as a writer, I wanted to be able to put my books covers behind me. So again, I didn't understand the market. I didn't know that. And people were really like, this is a feature. You can't put, there's no way to monetize it. And it turns out it was a feature. There was no real great way to monetize it. And they were right. And it took me to like fall down twice to realize I wasn't going to do that again. So yeah. So when it came to Care Bloom, yes, I was a family caregiver. I'd actually been a nursing assistant all through college. So I knew a lot more, but I also knew a lot of people in the field. And I was able to really have great conversations with families. Where are you struggling? What is your pain point? What are you willing to pay? What would you pay each month to actually have something that would that would fit into your life? What does that look like? So I spent a lot of time understanding that and iterating and putting out less than perfect products to see how people were using it. And I think that made a really big difference to create something that really fits into the market.
So you essentially went in and tried it and then said, okay, well, this is working. And what tools did you use to leverage that? Did you do Facebook testing, Instagram testing? Sorry, excuse me, I need to turn off my phone. Sorry.
Oh, all
Instagram
good.
testing or Facebook testing. What did you actually use?
I did it much more manually. I literally went to assisted livings and nursing homes and worked my way through a network of talking to home care owners. It was much more face to face. It took a long time. Created like a prototype that barely worked, put it on to see what it looked like, realized what worked and what didn't work. It was a really tiresome process. It was not just here's a survey on Instagram and Facebook, because one thing I found is when you talk to people, right, and you're like, here's an idea, most people are like, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I love your idea. But then what would it take to actually make you use my idea?
Right.
What are you going to pay for it after you try it? And so it was really important to me. I like talked to different stakeholders along that continuum for me and really dive in, because you saying it's a great idea and then you won't put my watch on or my wearable on, there's a disconnect. So I went really deep into it because I failed twice.
Right.
And I learned I didn't want to do that again. I didn't want to build out an entire company and put a lot of money into something without really understanding who my customers were.
Yeah. And a lot of entrepreneurs, like 7, 8 figure entrepreneurs, always say that the first thing to do before you even build something out is to actually sell that thing.
Yes.
So, you know, that way you really know, is there a market for that before you build it?
And I think that is a really important thing to do, even if it's selling on like a Kickstarter or something beforehand. Understanding what somebody will pay is pretty critical, because sometimes what they'll saying, even when you're like giving away stuff, is like, yeah, I'll take it for free.
Right.
But that does not a business make, right?
Right. Wow. And if you had to go back and do that again, right, that same process, is there anything else that you would implement now, looking back, that you think would have been helpful in maybe speeding up that process?
So this company, Care Bloom, we had lots of hurdles along the way. It hit like we started our really some of our really big testing right before COVID.
Oh.
Yeah. And we were testing in nursing homes and assisted living.
Oh.
So yeah, so that actually was our target demographic when we first launched. And we were testing and we were getting really beautiful data out of that. But with COVID, all of a sudden it went, whoop, you have no market. You're not allowed in.
Oh.
So that hit us pretty hard. And what we did from there was we're like, okay, we'll go to homes. People are going to want to stay home. We are going to target those folks. And so we took that time and kind of redesigned our system to really fit home. And I do think we had a lot of learnings around the way, because our product was a little more expensive. And we did learn that the home market doesn't bear what the facility or community could bear. And in that case, we really didn't examine that as deeply, because it wasn't really where we were hitting. And I do think we had some learnings, and it took us a little bit to get off the ground in that home market to really understand price point. And that would be something I would tell people. Price testing is kind of critical. I get not wanting to leave money on the table, but really come up with some really good strategies to understand when things are not selling at that price point, and what you have to do to come up with that right pricing strategy that, one, makes it so you can still be profitable, but still resonates with your clientele.
Wow. Okay. And then, is there anything that you think Because essentially what you did was you tested the market to become clear on your idea, right?
Yeah.
To kind of flush out the idea and make sure, listen, this is the model, this is what we're going to do, and this is how it's going to be profitable. Was there anything else that you think, maybe tool that would be able to you that you'd be able to use to kind of flush out that idea if you don't have a business where you're going door to door?
So I think there are a lot of great ways. We're so lucky to live in a time with Facebook, with Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you put out a survey or you start to talk about your ideas, really get feedback. Maybe ask the questions to the problem you're trying to solve first. Don't say, do you like this idea? Ask them, like, what are you seeing when it comes to XYZ? What could make it better? How much time are you spending on this? Understand where that ROI is in what your value proposition is. So to really do that, really understand the pain points of your customers, and your sample size has to be pretty large. Like, you can't say, oh, these 10 people thought this would be great. Make sure your sample size is large enough, and it's if you're going to be a national company, and that it crosses the country, because you're going to find that there are different hardships and different issues across the country where people live, and making sure you're getting that whole kind of coverage if you're targeting everyone.
Oh, I love it. I love the insight that you're giving. Awesome. Okay, so let's go forward now. So now you have the company, right? And explain. So you have company one, and then you went into company two.
Yes. So the other company is called ltcarenav.com, and it is the exact same target demographic. And this company came out of the fact that everybody told me their problems. It was so beautiful. It was like it rained down on me. And what was happening was I was installing care blooms into people's homes, into the assisted livings. And so I had these really beautiful conversations with families, with elders who were going to be utilizing it. And while I would put these systems in, they would talk to me about, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to make my life easier. But I don't know when mom may need to increase care. I don't know how much that care is going to cost. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. And then who's going to help me? And then their last question was always like, will you help me? And I was like, I'm happy to.
Wow.
Yes. And I was like, therein lies the problem. I was not even asking for it, but almost every family were saying the exact same thing.
Wow.
Yes. And I went, here's the problem. This is a bigger problem than the one I'm already solving. And it was a gift that families gave me. And so with LT Care Nav, I actually set out to answer all of those questions. And so when you come to our site, it's free for families, because families in care situations are already strapped for money. It's already tense. So I didn't want to add to that. It was something I knew they wouldn't necessarily pay for. So had to find a workaround business model. But we create care trajectories for them. We talk to them about what care might look like, what it's going to cost. We show them different tools that they might not be aware of in their state or in their county, or just in general, financial tools of how they could pay for it. We help them create a long-term care plan that grows with them and changes with them. And I think the thing that we do that's really the most beautiful is we match them with the people who can help, because it's still a human-centric industry. And so we make matches. We are not mass lead generation. We are beautifully curated matches. And that is where I found my business model.
Whoa.
And so, because at first when I was building this, I was like, oh, look at me. I found something else that no one will pay for. And I was like, oh, I'm so good at that. But I realized that there is another problem in the other side of the industry with providers who provide some form of service in the long-term care industry, really meeting the families where they are, and that had a return on investment for them. Them to be matched with these people made sense. And so I targeted them as the business model piece of it. And I do say that because we're not mass lead generation, it's still a lot of like leaving money on the table, like I said.
Mhm.
And that is still something that looking forward as a company, we might have to address, but I'm not willing to change our methodology and what I'm really proud of to increase the revenue. But that's a decision that I've made.
Right, right. And a lot of business owners aren't clear as to what they're willing to do or not do to be able to drive revenue or drive profits, because they're not really clear on their business model, right? And since yours is more like, you're more about caring and giving, it's a little bit different to mass do that.
And I think you have to decide, like in some cases, if you're creating something that's very mission oriented, you might have to consider how that looks, right? It might
Right,
play into your profits. There are definitely other rewards that come to you and come to your clientele because you're doing it this way.
right.
Then those are like personal decisions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. And how long has this journey been for you?
So Care Bloom started in 2017. So we were one of the first on the market in the space when it comes to age tech to like really start dipping our toes into understanding what that looks like with that company. We were early, and also being early isn't always great either because people you get a
Right.
lot of pushback for stuff sometimes when you're early. LT Care Nav is a really new venture that has grown really quickly because I'm used to not success and not growing quickly. It's definitely been like, huh, this is fun. So there's a lot of fun that comes with growing more quickly. But I think the only reason it's doing this is because the market was saying this is what we need, and it was
Mhm.
so consistent across the board. And if you can find that niche that fills something that is not being serviced so perfectly, there's a really high chance of success. People will adopt it when they truly need it.
Yeah, and just hearing what you're saying too, um, what it sounds like to me is two things came up. You were speaking to your clients, and you were actually asking them what their pains were. They were telling you, "Hey, listen, this is great, but it's not solving everything." And the fact that when they do come and sign on, there isn't a cost associated with it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that pairing is just like phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that really understanding who's going to pay for what, I don't think we could have had the growth if I was charging families. There would have been
Right.
a barrier to entry that was harder.
Right.
Um, and my goal is to never charge families, but it's also that freemium model. If you are like, for those listening who are looking at a SaaS service, giving
Mhm.
something away for free or even for a small amount and kind of concierging it, like, I'm going to give you something. I'm not going to charge you what I would normally charge just to kind of get people in the door is
Mhm.
could be a plan if it is something that you can't give it away for free.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that. I love that. And where you're sitting now, if you had to go back and give your past self some advice, what advice would that be? And what tool would you give?
So I sometimes think like, would I go back and tell myself all the things I know now? And yeah, I think I don't sometimes you'd be like, yeah, you could save all this pain. And I cried a lot, right? It was really sad. Failures are sad. Like sometimes it's hard to like adjust to those things. But I don't know if I could have learned it in such a profound way
Mhm.
if somebody would have just told me, because I am sure if I think back, somebody probably said these things to me, right?
Right.
There were books out there about startups that probably said these things. And unless you're truly experiencing it, I guess maybe you don't learn it as deeply.
Mhm.
So I hope if somebody's listening, like it is really important, like test your model, know who will pay for it. You're going to save yourself in the long run because if you can do it the first time, that'd be great, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel like clarity is key.
Yes.
Mhm. Is there a tool that you think, though, maybe not advice, but maybe a tool?
well, if I could go back then and give myself some of these fun AI tools when no one else had them. um, no, I would. I think the biggest thing you have to have if you're going to be a startup founder is tenacity.
Mm,
Tenacity and grit and the ability to overcome whatever's thrown at you and realize that tomorrow's a new day and I'm going to solve a new problem.
mm-hmm,
I think that is the biggest tool that anyone can have. And sometimes it's just already in you.
mm-hmm,
And I and I think I had a little bit of that. I think for if
mm-hmm,
anyone would call me something, it would be like tenacious, like to the point of like I started a second company the same way and it didn't work, right? But that would be a tool that I would tell everybody, figure out what that looks like for you. Don't you can't be thin-skinned.
mm-hmm,
Like you really have to learn to take the constructive criticism, weed through it, and let yourself use it to make yourself better, and get up the
mm-hmm,
next day and do it again, even if it's hard.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I'm sure it wasn't easy going door to every facility. Like, what did you do? Did you like sit down and just look through the phone book and say, or the look online and say, hey, these are the 10 companies? Like, what does that look like?
Oh, I had a big list. I had like a big list in a notebook of like everything that was local. And because I had worked in memory care when I was younger, I knew a lot of the places in town that were around me. And I did. You just like walk in the door and you're like, hello, I'd like to talk to somebody. And then they like, a lot of people were like, we'll take your name and never call you again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I would say I was more tenacious in the fact that I just didn't call. Calls you never get anyone. No one would ever call back. But
Right.
going to the door and talking to the girl, the receptionist, that was a little more effective. And when you're starting something new and you're starting something locally, if you really care about what you're doing, if you really have the drive to get it done, as tedious as that might sound, if you do that for a few weeks before you jump in and build, you're going to save yourself a lot of money in the long run.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. And I mean, that's why they say, when you're starting, pick up the phone, make phone calls, speak to the person directly, or drive and go there. Or, obviously, if you have the resources, you can run ads. But a lot of people they're not starting at that point.
And even running ads, like that doesn't give you kind of the details you really want to know, right? And it takes, what do they say, like 7 times. Someone has to see your ad 7 times to decide to do something. You're looking at a lot of cost. I think people
Mm-hmm.
really starting out, a couple days of driving around is going to
Yeah.
cost you less, and you have some evidence of what's happening. Like you don't know whose eyeballs are on those ads.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know what that kind of conversion looks like well enough to understand. So if you can do it, I would say it's worth the time.
I love it. I love it. I love the advice. I love the advice. And are there any tips that you would give maybe mid, not startup, but like mid-range founder that's in the middle of the journey in the weeds? Is there anything that you've noticed or that you feel is great advice that you wish someone had given you?
I think at that point, it's still stay in touch with your client. I think most people, when they've gotten past that that first hump, it really is still listen to your customers, because you need them to stick with you, especially if you're a SaaS model. Like really understand where they're dropping off after how many months and why,
Mm-hmm.
because the lifespan of your client in most cases, or your customer, is really important. So making sure that you continue to add value, and what does that look like?
Mm-hmm. And with the implementation of AI and automation and all the things, how is that affecting your business right now?
So for us, it's great because, especially in CareNav, I mean, it really is, it's all front end, is all the AI and the automation. To do these kind of plans before, you had to have somebody who had a degree in it and really had to like have a financial understanding, medical, there's a lot that goes into it. And really the AI is what has made it so our company can even exist. So 5 years ago, it wasn't even an option.
Mhm.
And it also has made Care Bloom better in the fact that we usually presented raw data and we made inferences off of it. And now we're really able to dive a lot deeper into the insights because of these AI tools.
And are there any specific tools that you like the best or that you think are really great with like data?
So I think it depends on what your platform's built on. And that would be the answer. I think there's like the couple big ones in the industry if you're going to like crunch numbers and data, but it really has to play nice with your back end. So it really is going to depend on what your infrastructure is.
Hmm. Hmm. I love all of this. I love the conversation with you. I think that it's really deep and insightful. I'm hoping that our listeners are truly paying attention. And are there any hurdles or struggles that you foresee with scaling that you think that may change the model that you're in now, or is there anything that you're forecasting right now?
So Caribloom is an easier one to look at. And Caribloom is a hardware company, and hardware is hard. There's no way around it. And people told me that too, and I didn't realize how hard it is. And so when you're building a software company, there's a lot of things you can overcome. It's a much easier task. So anyone who's looking at manufacturing or value chains, this year was kind of really an eye opener of how quickly things can change with
Mhm.
tariffs.
Mhm.
And you can think you're like on one trajectory and you're ready to place an order. And then all of a sudden your order is 175% more when you wake up the next day. Right. So be ready for that unpredictability. And we would not have been able to overcome that. If the tariffs would have stayed like that, it would have completely shut us down. And it was something for a while during that period before they kind of came back down to a place. We were like, okay, what are we going to do?
Mhm.
And so I think in some cases, you really have to understand what your outside forces are, things that
Right.
are completely beyond your control, because there was nothing we could do about that, right? There was not a smart decision we could make. We tried looking at sourcing from other places, but when you have a value chain in place that took a year to get established, you're not quickly establishing something new.
Wow.
And so just be aware of what your outside forces are and acknowledge them. And sometimes you have to say, I can't work around this, but what do you do? Are you able to ride through it? What does
Mhm.
that look like?
So you have to be able to pivot really quickly should anything
Yeah.
shift in the market, which is good advice, right?
Yeah.
And I think the key to that also is knowing what your business looks like and what it would look like in order to be able to still service the clients at a high level and be able to pivot at the same time.
Yeah. And I will tell you, we didn't come up with a good solution. So I don't, sometimes it might not be there. Luckily, like we got through that and it changed on its own. But I think sometimes when there are things that are impassable, acknowledging that, because sometimes a pivot isn't, there might not be something, right?
Right.
And what does that look like? And in digesting that and realizing that sometimes things are just out of your control and
Mhm.
in understanding that and not being too hard on yourself.
Right. Right. Wow. And then what does scaling look like for you now that we're in this new age? Does it mean hiring more people? Does it mean implementing new software? Like, what does scaling look like?
So when it comes to a hardware company, scaling means different things, right? It's how you up your MOQs, your minimum order quantities. What does that look like? What does time frame look like? And we are diving into that now. We are going from small orders to larger ones, which is super exciting because it brings our prices down, all of these great things. And so we're really in the middle of understanding what scaling looks like as a hardware company. And it's exciting and scary and it's great, right? So we're at the
Yes.
point where we can scale, which is amazing. And it took us a long time. So I want to remind people, like, sometimes it takes a long time and baby steps are good until you can really soar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then scaling with LT Care Nav is right now, I'm really focusing on bringing on like the best B2B partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
And as of right now, we're going to launch at the beginning of March with 300 partners, which is huge for a company that's only a few months old.
Wow.
Yes. And I did it in the most unscalable way possible. How about
Mhm.
that? I talked to every single person. I vetted them all myself. Yeah. See how big your eyeballs are? It's not sustainable. It's not
Wow.
scalable. But I'm really proud of that because, at least for right now, I can tell families. I have talked to every one of these people. I've asked them the same questions I would ask if it was my family member, and I trust them. So, truthfully, like working out what scale looks like on that, because I think it's something that we do that's really beautiful. And I don't want to lose that piece for our families. I want families to always know that when you come to us, that we have spoken to these people and it's someone we would use. So we are working through, what does scale look like? Is it some kind of AI automation that does the initial consultations and throws people out pretty quickly and then moves them on?
Mhm.
And we're really looking what that entails, because I think it's really important that we can stand by our providers that we're matching with. And so
Mhm.
we're trying to understand that too.
Wow. And along the way, did you get any coaching or mentorship?
I think mentors are so valuable.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are probably the thing that can help you most. And I would recommend find a really good mentor.
Mm-hmm.
I have had a mentor that has been with me since the start of, actually, he was with me at the end of my company that failed. And he was someone who would tell me, he's like, I don't know about this. He's like, here's what you can do, but I don't know about this. But so he's been with me for a really long time. So find someone you can trust who will be honest with you. They
Mm-hmm.
have to be in your field. They don't have to be the most successful person you've ever met. Like having some understanding of your field is really important and what you're looking for. Um, so I would tell everyone to find a mentor if you can.
Wow. Awesome. 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 And then your mentor that you found, was it someone that you found online? Was it someone that you personally knew? How did you find a mentor?
So I found him through, I'm in Ohio, and there's something called Ohio Third Frontier. There's a bunch of different kind of startup venture kind of organizations, kind of accelerators, and they do a lot to help the startup infrastructure here in Cleveland, which is not huge, but is there. And I was matched with him early on as an EIR, an entrepreneur in residence, and he was in the space. He's had he serviced the assisted living space, so he was a really good match, and he's amazing. And you know who you are if you're listening, because I think you do listen to these.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so you found that through your local, and how did you find out about the local organization?
I think a lot of cities have these local organizations, and I would just tell everyone, like, look it up. Look up who's doing your startup events, and network. If there are startup events, go to them. You will find somebody there who you can talk to, who will point you in the right direction. Be open to meeting new people, be open to conversations. And I think a big thing is, don't make it all about yourself. See, when you go and approach these people, if you're asking for something, I think your follow-up question should be, what can I do for you?
Mm-hmm.
People really enjoy collaboration more than just offering help. So when you're at these events, really kind of focusing on mutual beneficial relationships, not just what can I get while I'm here.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I have been to a million networking events where it feels like the person speaking to me on the opposite end is just pitching.
Mhm.
And it never is a comfortable, even if you want their service, it's kind of off-putting. So I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah, and I think it will come back to you. And even if you go and you just offer, not say here's what I do, here's what I do. It's how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? That will come back to you tenfold.
Mm-hmm.
So what can I do for you that doesn't cost anything? How can I listen to your pitch? How can I give you opinions? I think that is something I've always kind of done, and it has built a really nice network around me. So when I do need something, I'm able to call on people because of what I've done, of the groundwork I've laid.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Love it. Love it. So you lead with helping first. I love that. And it sounds like all throughout your model, that's what you've been doing. Lead with helping first, and then it's returned to you.
Absolutely. And I think when you are approaching it from that place, of a place that you are wanting to make something better for whoever you're servicing, it's going to get you a lot further. My two startups, first ones, could they have been solving a problem? Maybe. Were they going to do anything to help people or make their lives better? Not at all.
Mm.
So I think when you truly believe in what you're doing, it's going to resonate not just beyond success, but with the people your clients or your customers.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. Lindsay, how can everyone find you?
So if you go to ltcarenav.com/podcasts, there is actually, we're giving away 25% a month off of CareBloom for listeners. And we're giving a free ebook away that I wrote, Plan Today, Protect Tomorrow, that allows you to really start having good conversations with your family and what does a plan look like. Because I think that's the other thing that CareNav does is every single one of us is going to age. We are all going to get old. We are all going to take care of a loved one, especially with the baby boomers and that kind of happening, and really helps families open up discussions to plan and what that looks like.
Yeah, most I mean, that is one of along with some other things that come up that people just they don't speak about because it's not a comfortable conversation. See,
No.
I'm even finding it uncomfortable having that specific conversation.
And it is a hard conversation, right? We don't want to face our own immortality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that both of my companies do, is we face those end of life kind of decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all going to get there, and we can do it in a better way. And so I really hope we can be part of helping make that easier for families.
Mm-hmm.
The whole caregiving, end of life, the decisions you have to make, we really want to help improve that. So if you check out there, and then you can also email me from that same page. There's a way to contact me.
Love it. Love it. Lindsay, thank you so much for being our guest today. I thought the conversation was amazing.
Thank you. It really was. I'm so glad I had the opportunity to do this with you. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks again, guys.